Please be seated. Well, Saint Simon and Saint Jude are probably the least known of the apostles. We don't have much about them. The Epistle of Jude is believed to be written by this apostle Jude, who we also know as Jude Thaddeus, not to be confused with Thaddeus. So that's about what we know. And then Simon, not being Simon Peter, is Simon the Zealot. What's interesting about that is tradition kind of splits right down the middle of whether Simon was part of one of the groups of Jews prior to Jesus who were considered zealots. And these were people who were a very large group that believed in Jewish nationalism, and that part of the Messiah coming was to restore the physical land of Israel and Judah back as the land that God had given God's people. And they would often assassinate people. They would cause unrest. And ultimately, it's actually the zealots who really elevated Rome's anger to the point where they came and rooted out right after Jesus, the destruction of the temple, and rooted out and took over this land known as Israel or Palestine, Palestine. That was the zealots that set those folks off. So we don't really know if Simon was entrenched in that and had this conversion experience when Jesus came along and saw a bit larger picture than than Jerusalem and the land itself, that there was something bigger to God's kingdom. But nonetheless, we do know that he became a zealot for Jesus. Simon was all about Jesus and all about following Jesus. And tradition purports that Simon and Jude traveled, was kind of a different places, but Mesopotamia, Persia, where they were martyred potentially, but then St. Basil says that at least St. Jude died of peaceful death. So basically what I'm trying to say is we don't really know. That was a whole long way of saying we just don't know. We just don't know. But what we do know is they were apostles, they followed God, they were in love with Jesus, they were in love with the message of Jesus, and to some extent they, after Jesus' death and resurrection and ascension, spread the good news to some parts of the Mediterranean basin. And how they met their end is going to be just something that's up in the lore and something we wonder about. But at the end, they still did the very work of an apostle. They nurtured themselves in Jesus' presence. They went out into a world that wasn't going to always be welcoming to the message of Christianity, to the message of Jesus. They stayed prayerful, they stayed committed to God, and they shared the good news. What more of an example can we have than that? Than to go out into the world, keeping ourselves grounded in God, nurturing our relationship with God so that we can then let the light that's within us shine out into the world and into all we do. That seems like a message in itself. And we'll just stop there. Loving people, loving God, letting that light shine forth. That is Simon and Jude, and Simon being the zealot that he was to go out and share that reality wherever he traveled. We know he traveled and we know he impacted people, and same with Jude. We just might not know how it all ended, but nonetheless, we know the good news was shared. Amen.